He thought it was just a hospital bed, a mistake, a burden to carry alone. But someone had already arrived, long before he asked for help. Where there should have been absence, there was presence. Where silence should have reigned, a voice without a mouth answered. Based on the true stories of Acarya Krpananda Avadhuta, what you're about to witness is not imagination, but grace in its most stunning form. When the unseen walks beside you, now streaming on the worker. The year was 1965. The sun hung heavy over Bhagalpur, casting long golden streaks across the modest campus of Subar Agricultural College. There, among the worn buildings and quiet trees, lived a family Acharya named Devi Chanda, a strong devotee from Himachal Pradesh whose heart had long been surrendered at Baba's feet. He had just received troubling news. A stomach operation was necessary, urgent and unavoidable. But Devi Chanda said nothing to Baba. No explanation, no request, just a quiet departure. He went to Jamalpur, met Baba briefly, and mentioned only that he was leaving. Baba looked at him and said simply, "Okay," nothing more. He traveled alone to Ranchi. The hospital was sterile and cold, the kind of place where hope must be kindled by one's own breath. The operation was done, successful, but afterwards, he was alone. No one came to visit. No brother monk by his side, no family to offer food or comfort, just silence and the dim ache of recovery. Until one morning, an old man appeared. His skin was dark and creased like worn leather, and his back was hunched with age. He entered without asking and stood by Devi Chanda's bed with a quiet, almost reverent stillness. "Can I help you?" he asked gently. Devi Chanda, too weak to speak much, whispered, "Water." The old man nodded, and from that moment, every morning and every evening, he came. He brought water, nothing more, nothing less. Not words, not questions. Just water, with eyes that seemed to see more than they showed. Days passed like pages turned by invisible hands. Back in Jamalpur, Baba casually told others, "Don't worry about Acharya Devi Chanda. His operation went well. He will return in 2 or 3 days." No one had informed Baba. No telegram had been sent. Yet Baba spoke with calm certainty, as though time and distance were no obstacle to his knowing. When Devi Chanda was discharged, he turned to the old man and, moved by gratitude, offered him 2 rupees. The old man took the note silently and vanished from the hospital, disappearing into the noise of the city like a leaf carried by wind. Devi Chanda returned to Subar, still pondering the kindness of that stranger. A few days later, he traveled back to Jamalpur and joined Baba's field walk. The path wound through soft dust and whispering grass. Around them, birds dipped low across the sky. Baba was ahead, speaking to those around him with ease and laughter. Then suddenly, Baba turned to Devi Chanda and said with a gentle smile, "That 2 rupees you gave to the old man, it was mine." And with that, Baba reached into his own pocket and pulled out the very same 2-rupee note. There was no mistake. It was the same worn note, folded in the same way. Devi Chanda froze, his breath caught in his chest. And then, tears. Silent tears that rolled down his cheeks like rain breaking after a long drought. He could not speak. He could only fold his hands, bow his head, and feel the infinite presence of the one who had come, not as a divine figure in robes and radiance, but as an old man with kind eyes and a cup of water. This is how Baba moves. Unseen, unassumed, unlimited. To the one who walks the path with faith, he comes. Sometimes not in thunder, not in visions, not even in words, but in footsteps that vanish, in help that asks nothing in return, in water that tastes like grace. Sometimes the presence of the Guru is felt in silence, through an old man with water, through a wordless act of grace that arrives when no one else does. But there are also times when his presence becomes the very sound of our laughter and the mirror of our own forgetfulness. Devi Chanda had returned from that miraculous field walk still shaken, still holding that worn 2-rupee note like it carried the entire weight of the universe. He had seen Baba as the one who walks unseen, who answers prayers before they are spoken, who becomes the stranger just to serve you a drink of water. But Baba was not finished with him. Not yet. A few days later, they gathered again, this time for a simple field walk through the dusty outskirts of Jamalpur. The wind was gentler that morning, and the sun, though bright, felt softer somehow. The mood was light. Baba was surrounded by a small group of monks and Margiis, speaking in the way he often did, about everything and nothing at once, until, suddenly, he stopped and turned to the group. "Do you know," he asked with a playful glint in his eyes, "how to find your soap in a city full of elephants?" A wave of puzzled amusement swept through the group. Several glanced at each other, uncertain whether to laugh or reflect. But Baba was already smiling, already drawing the first thread of a story from the loom of the mundane. "There was once a stranger," he began, "who came to a bustling town and walked into a shop to buy a bar of soap. He paid with a large note, but the shopkeeper had no change, so the man was asked to return later to collect the balance." He paused, letting the image settle. Then, gently, Baba continued. Before leaving, the man worried, "How will I find this exact shop again among all these others?" Then he saw something. A grand elephant tied to a post right outside. He smiled, a perfect landmark. Baba tapped the earth softly with his walking stick. So, the man left, and later returned, only to find the elephant had been moved to another shop. The same elephant, just tied to a different post. By now the group had begun chuckling, sensing the absurdity ahead. The man went to the new shop and demanded his change. The shopkeeper scolded him, of course. Laughter rang out beneath the open sky. Baba's smile lingered, but his voice grew thoughtful. "Don't use moving things as your landmarks." The laughter softened into a kind of stillness. "You see," he said, "we make the same mistake in life. We try to navigate the mind, the world, the spiritual path, using elephants that do not stay still." He gestured lightly with his hand, as if moving invisible objects into order. But when the mind is trained to summarize, to organize, then memory becomes sharp, like a library with its shelves in place. He turned again and began walking slowly, the dust lifting around his feet like breath rising from the earth. If you want to remember long passages, first hold their essence. If you want to recall a place, remember a still point. And if you want to remember truth— He stopped. Meditate. Silence fell again. The monks felt the weight of that single word as if it had cracked open something beneath their ribs. "Gyan," Baba whispered, "is the anchor." Then he looked out across the green fields, as though searching for something beyond the horizon. When you ideate on a great personality, one whose awareness spans the past, present, and future, your memory aligns with his. You remember what matters, not through effort, but through tuning. And just when the moment had settled into solemnity, Baba brightened again and launched into another tale. "There were once 3 fish living in a pond," he said. The group smiled, knowing something delightful was coming. One said, "I know 1,000 ways to escape the fisherman." Another said, "I know 100. But the third fish simply swam to the next pond and said, "I'm not wasting time with plans. I'm going now." Everyone laughed again, but this time the laughter carried a thread of reverence. The next morning, the fisherman came. He cast his net, and the first 2 fish, Baba said with a mischievous glance, were caught mid-theorizing. The third fish, it watched quietly, from safety. Baba stopped walking and looked directly at the youngest monk in the group. "That third fish," he said softly, "is what Ananda Marga teaches. Don't waste time. Don't argue. Don't circle around truth. Move toward it." The monk's eyes filled, not from emotion, but from the overwhelming clarity of what had just entered his heart. As the group continued walking through the open path, the field breeze picked up again. The leaves rustled. Birds stirred in the trees. But in every step, in every smile, in every parable Baba wove, there was a steady rhythm, like a song made of silence. That day, no one took notes. No one asked questions. But every word that Baba spoke settled like seeds into the soil of their being. Because when the Master teaches, it is not just with words. It is with elephants that move, with soap that vanishes, with fish who stop speaking and simply swim. And the ones who listen, they never forget. But Baba was not finished. Not yet. Because just as some truths arrive hidden in laughter and soap, others descend wrapped in silence, revealing themselves not in words, but in light. The next account belongs to Dada Krishnendu, a young Acharya still learning to hear the language of the unseen. What unfolded before him one winter night in Madhapura did not come through scripture, nor even through the spoken voice of the Master. It came glowing, and it walked through stone. It was 1968. A cold January night had fallen over Madhapura, Bihar. The streets were quiet, the trees bowed in the chill, and the hour was late, long past the time when most hearts return home. But Dada Krishnendu, still young in his sadhana, found himself accompanying an unusual companion, Jata Shankar. To those who knew him, Jata Shankar was not an ordinary Margi. He had been initiated by Baba into Kapalika Sadhana at the Tiger's Grave, one of the earliest recipients of that fierce and sacred practice. He dressed in red, wrapped his head in red, wore a red tilak on his forehead, and carried an aura that made people instinctively step aside. Some feared him, others revered him, but no one dismissed him. That night, just before midnight, the two of them walked silently to the graveyard. Jata Shankar led the way. As they reached the boundary where the world of the living blurs into something deeper, he pointed to a particular spot, then lowered himself wordlessly into meditation. Dada Krishnendu sat nearby, adjusted his seat, and entered his own practice. The graveyard was eerily quiet. A cold wind coiled through the trees. Faint rustles came and went, but nothing disturbed the intensity of the atmosphere. Time melted. 1 hour passed, maybe more. Then Dada Krishnendu opened his eyes, and everything changed. Jata Shankar was no longer sitting beside him. He was standing at a distance. But what stunned Dada Krishnendu wasn't the position. It was the light. The figure ahead of him shimmered, bathed in a soft, ethereal glow. Not the harsh glare of a lamp, nor the trick of moonlight, but a true radiance, bluish golden, alive and moving with its own will. The air around him pulsed gently. The grass beneath his feet seemed to awaken. Dada Krishnendu blinked, rubbed his eyes, still glowing, still standing. Then the luminous figure began to walk, not hurriedly, but gracefully, slowly, and yet somehow it moved without sound, without weight. It was no longer Jata Shankar's body walking. It was something more. Dada Krishnendu rose, clutching his blanket and mat, his pulse racing. He tried to follow, but the figure kept moving ahead, fluid, untouchable. And then it happened. The being walked directly into a stone tomb and passed through it. Not over, not around, through. Dada Krishnendu froze. No words formed in his mouth. The tomb stood still, intact. The air returned to silence. And at that precise moment, a voice called out behind him. Dada? He turned. There, calmly seated at the original spot, was Jata Shankar. As if he had never moved at all. They returned together in silence. Neither spoke of what had occurred. Not yet. It was only after midnight, at his home, as Jata Shankar prepared his post-sadhana meal, that the question came. How was your meditation tonight? Dada Krishnendu, still processing, recounted everything. The glow, the silent motion, the walk through stone, the voice that broke the spell. Jata Shankar listened with rapt attention. Then, lowering his gaze to the floor, he murmured something unexpected. I've been doing Kapalika sadhana every single night for years, and I've never seen what you just described. He wasn't angry, he wasn't skeptical, he was reverent and quietly shaken. Dada Krishnendu replied softly, It wasn't from me, it was Baba's grace. And with that, the silence between them deepened, not as absence, but as recognition. They both understood. The luminous being in that cemetery had not come for fear or display. It had come to show what cannot be explained, to prove that the Master walks even where the body cannot, that grace sometimes takes shape, not in visions, not in thoughts, but in radiant form, silent, unmistakable. And when it does, the world can never return to how it was. From that day forward, Dada Krishnendu never forgot, not because of the miracle, but because of the message hidden within it. He walks with us, even through stone, even when no one sees, even when no one believes, even when we think we're alone. Some stories are not remembered for what we saw, but for what we heard. And some voices, though never spoken through lips, echo far beyond the edges of thought. This is one of those stories where the body rested, the air held still, and yet a voice crossed rivers, climbed mountains, and entered the silence of a man history had forgotten. It was 1969 in Ludhiana, Punjab. Over 1,000 Margiis had gathered for DMC. The atmosphere buzzed with quiet expectation as Baba arrived. His presence alone could still a crowd. But on this day, he was preparing to do something that would leave even the most faithful breathless. Baba stood before the assembly and asked a simple question. Are there any MBBS doctors present? 2 men stood up, glancing at one another with uncertainty. Baba gestured to one of them. Examine this man, he said, pointing to Dada Tanmay. The doctor obeyed. Margiis shifted in their seats, trying to see. The hall fell unusually quiet as the examination began. After a short check, the doctor looked up and said, Baba, he is in perfect health. Baba nodded, then turned to Dada Tanmay. Lie down. The monk obeyed, lowering himself slowly to the ground. The sun filtered gently through the tent. A breeze stirred. A murmur passed through the crowd as they leaned forward. Then Baba began. One by one, with no visible effort, he withdrew all 10 vayus, all vital airs, from Dada Tanme's body. No chants, no mudras, just the stillness of his gaze and the invisible motion of his will. The effect was eerie. With each vayu withdrawn, Dada Tanme's body grew more still, more lifeless, until finally, nothing. When the last vayu was taken, Baba turned to the doctors once again. Examine him now. The two leaned down, whispering quietly, their hands searching for a pulse, for breath, for warmth. Then stood up, faces pale. He is lifeless, one whispered. A stunned hush fell across the 1,000-person assembly. You could hear someone's breath catch. A woman in the back covered her mouth. A few looked toward the exit, unsure if this was demonstration or disaster. Baba looked at the crowd calmly and said with a touch of playfulness, "Then you will have to cremate him." A wave of nervous laughter rippled through the crowd, half in relief, half in disbelief. Then Baba said, "But before you do, let me make him speak." He turned toward Dada Tanme's motionless form, and a voice emerged. Not from his lips, not from his mouth, but from within the body. A voice, disembodied, alive, and impossibly present. Gasps broke out. Some leaned forward involuntarily. Others sat frozen, lips parted, eyes wide. You could feel the tension surge, not as fear, but as something sacred pressing down on the chest. Then Baba began speaking to the voice. "Go across the Ganga," he instructed. "Past the Himalayas. Enter Tibet. What do you see?" The voice responded, "A thick forest." The crowd listened like children around a fire, their disbelief suspended in the air. Baba nodded. "Go further." "I see a man," the voice said slowly, "lying down in a cave." Baba asked, "Do you recognize him?" "No." "Have you not seen his face in photos? On calendars? Is it Netaji?" The voice paused. "Yes, Baba." A hushed murmur broke out again. "Netaji?" Baba smiled slightly. "Now enter his mind. What is he doing?" "He is performing Ishvara Pranidhana," came the answer. "He is meditating." Hands went to hearts. Tears quietly welled up in the corners of eyes. For many, this was no longer a story. It was history moving again. Baba's voice softened. "Ask him when he will return to India." Then a pause. "No," Baba added. "Don't disturb him. Come back to Punjab." The air held still. A boy clutched his father's arm. An older Margiis held his breath, as if afraid to blink. And then the voice vanished. The body lay motionless. Then slowly, breath returned. Dada Tanme stirred. Eyes opened. Life, once withdrawn, had returned to its vessel. The crowd remained silent. No one clapped. No one shouted. They simply sat there, utterly still, like those who had seen something not meant for this world, because what they had witnessed could not be explained. This was no seance, no performance. This was a journey made through the will of one who needed no maps, no borders, no flesh to carry a message. This was Baba, demonstrating what the mind can become when it is fully surrendered, beyond ego, beyond logic, beyond the walls of even death. And the voice? It did not belong to Dada Tanmay. It belonged to the place beyond speech, where only he could send you. Because when Baba chooses to speak, it may not be with a mouth, but it will always be heard. If this story touched something within you, and you haven't subscribed yet, we invite you to join this journey. Each video is created as a sacred offering, and your presence helps the light reach more hearts still waiting. Sometimes grace descends like moonlight, gentle, quiet, and silver with sweetness. And sometimes it lands like thunder, shocking, uninvited, and heavy in the chest. This is a story of both. It was the Meerut DMC in 1969. Dada Krishnendu had been posted as the regional education in charge for Allahabad and Chandigarh, and was also serving as acting regional secretary, shouldering two roles that rarely allow a man to breathe. Despite the weight, he worked with dedication, believing that effort was enough. But that morning, as Baba arrived after traveling from Ranchi to Delhi, then from Delhi to Meerut by car, only 10 workers had shown up for reporting. Baba's mood was different that day, neither cold nor angry, but crystal clear. He called Dada Krishnendu forward. "Why are there so few workers here?" he asked quietly. Dada Krishnendu stood frozen. The air around him suddenly felt heavier. "This DMC is for the hinterland of your region," Baba continued. "Every worker from Allahabad and Chandigarh should be present. Do you understand the policy?" Dada Krishnendu's mouth was dry. He nodded slowly, unsure what to say. Baba looked at him for a moment, then said something that struck deeper than any shout. "As you are in the post, you are responsible." Then came the second sentence, soft but final. "And since you are holding 2 posts, you will get extra punishment." Without raising his voice, without a single word of anger, Baba lifted his stick. And the beating began. It was not symbolic. It was real. Each blow landed with weight, not just on the body, but on the soul. And all around them, workers and Margiis looked on in stunned silence. No one questioned. No one interrupted. They all understood. This was not cruelty. It was correction. And it came from the one who saw deeper than any of them could. When it ended, Dada Krishnendu was demoted and transferred to Lucknow as diocese secretary. No formalities, no speeches, just a clean, swift consequence. And yet, he was relieved. The crushing pressure of his former duties lifted. The new post felt lighter, more breathable. But the pain, the physical bruises, the emotional ache of being chastised in front of his peers remained. Even during the DMC that followed, he could not fully engage. His mind spun with grief. His heart sat heavy. He was not angry at Baba, but he was quietly broken. The day DMC ended, Baba was set to fly to Bombay from Delhi. At the airport's departure lounge, the atmosphere was filled with soft kirtan. The Margiis chanted with devotion, hoping for one last glimpse of Baba. Dada Krishnendu stood quietly in a corner. He didn't chant. He didn't cry. He simply stood, aching, inwardly distant, unsure if he even wanted to speak again. Then the boarding call came. But Baba didn't walk toward the gate. He turned and walked straight to Dada Krishnendu. The moment he reached him, Baba didn't speak. He didn't explain. He simply placed his hand gently on Dada Krishnendu's shoulder. And in that single, wordless gesture, everything changed. The pain vanished, not just from the body, but from the mind. The bruises faded beneath the warmth of that touch. and Dada Krishnendu's heart, which had been bound tight in knots of confusion and grief, suddenly burst open in joy. Only then did Baba speak. "How are you?" he asked, smiling. Dada Krishnendu replied, stunned, "I feel fine." Baba nodded. "When are you going to Lucknow?" "Immediately," he answered, barely able to find words. Baba smiled again. "Yes, you go now." And so he did. He left the airport, waited 6 hours for a train, slept very little that night, but none of it mattered, because what he carried with him was not shame, not punishment, not even confusion. He carried the touch of his master, and once that touch finds you, you are never the same again. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is a beautiful moment to do so. Not for numbers, but for the path we walk together. Bábá Nám Kevalam. There are moments when the veil between the seen and the unseen grows thin, not through meditation alone, but by the touch of a master who chooses to open your eyes. In 1969, during a DMC in Ranchi attended by over 10,000 people, Baba gave a discourse on the profound meaning of the word Vishvarupa, the all-pervading, cosmic form of the Lord. He spoke not just as a philosopher, but as someone who knew what he was describing firsthand. On the second day of DMC, just after the discourse, Baba paused. His eyes moved slowly across the crowd, then stopped. He pointed. "Dada Priya," he said gently. "Stand up." The crowd shifted. All eyes turned to the front. Dada Priya stood, his posture straight but visibly nervous under Baba's full attention. "Look around," Baba said. "Tell me, how many people are here?" Dada Priya glanced over the crowd. His voice was steady but quiet. 10,000, Baba." Baba nodded softly. "Are you sure? Do you truly see that many forms?" Dada Priya hesitated, then replied, "Yes, Baba." Some in the audience smiled faintly, expecting a lesson. Others leaned forward, sensing something deeper was coming. Then Baba clapped his hands once. A single, resonant sound that seemed to stretch across the tent and into the bones of those seated. "Now look again." The air grew tense. Dada Priya turned his gaze back to the crowd, then froze. His eyes widened. His jaw loosened, but no words came. Around him, the Margiis began to notice his silence, his trembling. And then, some gasped, because his face had changed, not outwardly, but inwardly. A light had come into his eyes. He tried to speak, but the breath caught in his throat. Baba watched him closely. "What do you see now?" Dada Priya finally managed to whisper, "You, Baba, I see you." "Where?" "Everywhere." And now, the silence in the tent turned electric. A mother clutched her child tighter. A young Margiis leaned toward his friend, not daring to speak. Even senior workers looked at one another with wide, glistening eyes. The air itself seemed to shimmer. "Describe what you see," Baba said. Dada Priya looked out. "Every face is yours," he said. "All the people, they are you, Baba. All of them in Varabhaya Mudra." Tears streamed down his cheeks. Baba's voice was calm, almost playful. "Look up." Dada Priya obeyed and wept harder. "You are there too." "Look down." He looked at the dusty earth beneath his feet. "You are here as well." Look at yourself. He placed a hand to his chest, closed his eyes. His lips trembled. You are inside me, Baba. Then Baba clapped again, and Dada Priya's body relaxed. His eyes closed. He entered samadhi. His breath slowed. He sat motionless, but something within him had stepped through a doorway most will never see. The crowd around him sat absolutely still. No one dared move. The kirtan had stopped. Even the breeze outside seemed to pause. Some sobbed quietly. Others simply stared, hands in namaskar, eyes full, mouths slightly parted. It was as though the cosmic veil had thinned not just for one man, but for everyone. Because in that moment, even though only Dada Priya had received the demonstration, everyone else had felt the echo. The invisible had become visible. And those who witnessed it never forgot the day they saw not just Baba, but the one who is all. There are stories we hear, and stories that hear us. This was not just the account of a devotee recovering in a hospital. It was the journey of one soul learning that he was never alone. An old man with water, a glowing being in a graveyard, a voice without a mouth, and a presence that stretched from Punjab to Tibet. Dada Krishnendu didn't witness miracles. He witnessed truth. In disguise, in silence, in the clap of a hand and the hand of a master, he was punished. Not with cruelty, but with compassion strong enough to burn away ego. He was forgiven, not with words, but with a touch that dissolved pain in an instant. And when the veil was lifted, even for a moment, he saw what few ever glimpse, that the divine is not only above, it is everywhere, in stone, in voice, in self, in every corner where surrender finally replaces doubt. This is not a tale of what Baba can do. This is a revelation of who Baba is, and how he walks beside those who no longer demand to understand, but simply choose to follow. Join us in episode 5, where the voice of Dharma deepens and the trials of fire begin. Bábá Nám Kevalam. Love is all there is. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing to the Worker channel. Each video is created as a sacred offering to inspire, to remember, and to walk the path together. You can support this journey simply by clicking like, sharing it with someone who may need it, or leaving a comment below. Every action helps spread Baba's light to corners still waiting to be reached. Thank you for being part of this unfolding prachar. Bábá Nám Kevalam. Love is all there is.